right, we all know about warranty nightmares. Automotive Warranty Network Incorporated. If your warranty process still involves sticky notes, tribal knowledge, and late-night claims rejections, you're leaving money on the table. Automotive Warranty Network Incorporated brings clarity, compliance, and cash flow to your warranty game. They speak fluent OEM, and they've got your back. Hey, I want to encourage you to take a visit over to our partner, Target Automotive, target.com. That is great until you're drowning in it. Target turns that chaos into clarity with dashboards that actually make sense. Fixed ops leaders finally get what they need: real-time, drill-down insights without the spreadsheet migraines. It's not just business intelligence. It's Target.
Welcome to another episode of the Fixed Ops Mastermind. I am your host, Kyle Morissette. Today, I am joined by Inga Maurer, who is the senior partner at McKinsey and Company out of Chicago. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. It's such a pleasure to be with you.
I'm excited to have you on the show. So tell us a little bit about your position and McKinsey. And I know you do a bunch in our field, but tell me in your words what you do every day.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thrilled to. So McKinsey is a business consulting firm, which means everything and anything. But in my specific field, which is dealer and aftermarket, I have the pleasure of basically helping OEMs think about how to work with their retail and distribution partners, how to grow after sales, parts, service revenue, and improve, hopefully, the car buying and ownership experience from that angle. I work with dealers, both public groups, privately held rooftops, on improving their economics, everything from F&I attach rate to better technician efficiency and higher wrench time in the shop, to improving working capital by optimizing parts inventory and improving additional RO conversion. But then I also serve some of the third-party parts distributors, some of the parts retailers, and also some of the digital players in the ecosystem. Think about your third-party classifieds, your dealer websites, your service scheduling. And so I get the privilege, honestly, of looking across the entire retail and aftermarket ecosystem and really hopefully create a better car ownership and service experience that's more profitable for everyone who's involved in the ecosystem.
I love it. So that brings a question that just from listening to this, my question is, so you're able to communicate with the OEMs on how they could be more efficient and more beneficial, maybe to the dealer body, which then gets to the end customer, but then also being able to help them maybe from parts getting there on time or vehicles making it to the floor plan when they should. So you really are tying the whole piece of the puzzles, all the pieces together to try and make everything better.
We really try to. It doesn't always work because, as I'm sure, as you know, and have a lot about on this podcast,
Sure.
The connectivity in the chain doesn't always work as seamless. But yes, the goal is really to use data and now AI to kind of go away from treating every VIN the same, treating every zip code the same, treating every customer the same, and kind of do a better job for everyone.
I like that. So from your vantage point, with advising the OEMs and the dealer groups, how much pressure do you think is really on the dealers in 2026?
So I think it's a good question from both from a new car and from a variable side of the business, as well as from a fixed ops and service side. I think on the new car side, we've all heard lots of OEM announcements on volume aspirations. But I think if you look at the OEM announcements and then you look at the health of the US consumer, the average payment on a car loan that's at an all-time high. You look at increasing delinquencies on car loans. You look at how many customers have negative equity. And so I think we expect the new car market to be more flattish. And so that gives an opportunity. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. So that gives an opportunity for dealers to potentially think more what could be available and what could be opportunities to tap into on the used car side, because some customers still need access to a different vehicle than the vehicle they currently find themselves in. There's on the one side, the warranty side of the business, where we see customers being quite dissatisfied with some of the vehicle quality of some of the products in market. And so there's a big push from the OEM, and it lands on the dealer to improve warranty and the warranty side of the service experience. And for some dealers, they've found a way to make that quite profitable. But also some dealers look at the recent reimbursement rates and low parts availability and feel they get the short end of the stick because they have a dissatisfied customer in their location where they don't have the parts or the labor availability to serve the customer. And then kind of there's two sides to longer car ownership, both driven by an extension of the loan terms, but also by the affordability on the new car side. So people hang on to their cars longer, which means those cars need more parts, need more service. And so on the one side, that's an opportunity for dealers to take more and gain more economics on the fixed up side. But we also know customers aren't that service loyal as we would like them, or as a dealer would like them to be. Yeah. And so there's a lot of third-party service shops who are really trying to bring their customer their way, and sometimes are, let's say, a bit more sophisticated or agile in using digital tools, data mining to find these customers and attract them with very targeted offers.
I think, looking at it from my standpoint as a consumer, and then obviously for being an operator for so many years, is you have this vehicle that you end up having to hold on to longer because your payment is so high. But because the payment's high, you're upside down on the car. And so it's just the perfect storm of spending a lot of money, where in theory, you would roll that into a new vehicle or a new lease or something, but it's not available to you. But then you look at it from a warranty side, it only goes so long, right? So, the old adage was keep it until the warranty runs out and then get a new car. Now you might get to the warranty expiration and you're still 40 months away from being paid off. What do you see? Do you see anything coming from the OEMs or something else to make it more affordable to buy a vehicle?
Hey, I'm so sorry. I lost you at the warranty expiration point.
So if the warranty expires, and you still have 40 months left to pay, is there something there's got to be a breaking point, right? So who makes this breaking point where it becomes more affordable to be able to have this necessary investment?
Quick break in the action. Let's talk parts. Yeah, that corner of the dealership most people don't look at until there's a fire. Parts Edge helps you clean up that mess. Smarter inventory, better margins, and no more guessing games. It's like giving your parts manager a crystal ball, except this one actually works. Spiffy. You can manage your mobile appointments, optimize your service routes, track inventory, and process payments. All with Spiffy, and you can learn more at spiffy.com. You ever wish you could inspect every car like a tech with X-ray vision? UVI is like an MRI for your car. UVI doesn't miss a thing. Scans the tires, the underbody, body panels, and wheels for scuffs in seconds, giving your team instant, actionable intel without slowing down the lane. That's not the future. That's UVI, and it's live in stores today.
Yeah. So I think there's a thing. So you're seeing some of the extended warranty and service contract providers trying to fill that niche. And you're actually seeing more dealer groups to say when you're coming in for your service appointment around your third year and it's the last time that you've prepaid for that service appointment, they try to roll you into the next contract. And there's actually quite dispersing customer points of view. Some customers really like that experience and they say, I like the certainty, I prepay. But the reality is, as the vehicle hits the 5-year mark, there typically comes a lot of repairs that are not covered by these contracts. So even if I prepay my next oil change, tire rotation, filter, basic filters, kind of whatever, it's your engine oil pump, you're starting to get more expensive repairs. And if you also look at how many consumers have a lot of readily available savings and disposable income to pay for this, it's actually quite challenging for customers. And so I think there's a couple of different things. We're seeing more attempts by the OEM and by some of the bigger dealer groups to help the customer get out of a negative equity position. And it's hard to get a customer to come to close, but we're almost seeing some exploration on, do I really give more incentive on the new car, or do I instead use it to kind of take you out of a negative equity position on your used car? I think besides a lot of discussions around interest rates coming down, we don't really kind of see it yet materializing, even if there are Fed adjustments. When people look at the delinquencies, it's hard to get back to a 0% APR like we have gotten kind of used to. We are seeing a shift in mix for customers where leasing is becoming a lot more attractive again. And I think there's good things from a consumer angle, and there are problematic things from a consumer angle with leasing. But there's a lot of customers who say, I'm going to lease this next car for 2 years, and then I'm going to deal with the lease and get out of the lease and kind of move on from there. And I think that's going to be a short-term stopgap. But even with a lease, if the OEM doesn't get the residual value right, or like the OEM captive or the bank that is providing the lease, unless you have gap insurance, you find yourself at the point where you have the lease and you still have to write a check to the dealership. So that's why we actually see a lot of customers jumping into used cars, because they feel, I've already taken the first depreciation hit. It's not perfectly predictable, but there's more predictability on where the product price is going to go. And we see now, I mean, there's better loan products available on used cars, not just CPOs, but also other kind of younger used cars. There is more extended warranties and service contract product. And so there is actually a way how you can make a used car to the customer feel more like a new car. And so we're seeing some people really leaning into that.
That makes sense. So from a service side, we know that margins are generally pretty strong. But what separates a store that's actually converting well and has good, stable profitability to ones that actually just look good on a statement?
I think there's a couple of different pieces. I think first of all, it's someone who really cares about fixed ops. I think if you look at it historically, it was almost the unattractive stepchild. Everybody wanted to be the general sales manager, and kind of fixed ops didn't get the attention and the talent in some cases that it deserved.
For the record, not me.
No, definitely not you. Definitely not you. But it was kind of like the OEM rep would come and we would talk a lot about sales, and then we would be like, and make sure you service our customers. So I think both on the OEM side and on the dealer side, there has been a reckoning, because it is a much more stable, consistent profit center. But I think to your question, what makes a great service department? I think a great service department is someone who really has a seamless transition from the moment you buy the car to the service. And it's the cheesy things like introducing you to the service advisor, understanding the preferences. Do you want to be called? Do you want to be texted? Do you want to be emailed? Pre-setting the first service appointment. I think then there is the whole, again, very unsexy appointment hygiene. Do we actually follow up? Do we set the appointment? If during the last appointment you declined an additional RO that was recommended, do I actually check with you if you're now willing to do it, so I can pre-order the parts? So when the car is on the lift, I don't have to take the car off the lift. I don't have to make the parts manager place a rush order. Like I basically kind of pre-fill the pipeline. I think then there's all the hygiene around the service advisor, and how do you train your service advisor to interact well with men and women. Like it's like there is, like, whether we like it or not, a reality that a lot of women feel very intimidated, taken advantage of, and they go to car dealer on both sides of the equation. And so do you have advisors that instill trust, that use videos that show you whatever, here's your worn out part, here's a new part, here's the type of work we are doing, do a solid inspection, this video, explain what you're doing, give the customer the conviction that you have actually done work and not just put the car in a lift and reset some lights. And then I think it's really understanding what your technicians spend time on. Like, I'm always surprised when we come into a lot of shops, we see technicians looking for tools, technician looking for parts, for car keys. And technicians are so hard to find, to train, to retain. It's like one of your most precious assets in a dealership is like your OEM certified master tech with years under the belt, who can do basically the job in a third of the time that the job is supposed to take. And that asset, if this was a manufacturing process, you would say, I want to optimize wrench time. And so that means I might have a valet to pull up the cars. I might have a parts runner. I might, as a dealer, actually invest into duplicative tools so that doesn't be. So it's really almost understanding the efficiency of your technicians, like it's a bit of a production line, and then bringing the same rigor into your parts department to actually not just say, here's the OEM recommendation, but here is my personal take on what parts do I want to have in inventory or not, to improve inventory costs, but also improve availability, because we know if the customer is expecting the car back at 5 p.m. and you call them at 4:45 and you try to sell an additional RO and they're going to get the car back the next day, it's not going to happen. But if like you call them at 10 a.m., you send a text with a picture, your parts department already has the parts ready, you're still going to get them the car back at 5 p.m. Suddenly your additional RO conversion is 50, 60, 70%. And the scale benefits you get if you already have the car open and on the lift is quite substantial. And so I wish I could tell you there's the one magic wand on you just buy this one chatbot or this service scheduling software.
There's not an answer like that.
It's unfortunately not. And then I think the last thing is parts wholesale. So we see some dealer groups really leaning into it on, hey, how do I partner with the local collision shops, with kind of other smaller technicians, but that have a very branded product, parts preference to really become their supplier of choice. And it gives you typically a lot more velocity on your inventory, which kind of improves your working capital efficiency. And it kind of, sometimes we look just at the P&L. The people who do it well kind of also look at the P&L and the balance sheet.
I like it. So if you were going into a dealership and they were feeling just that stress, right? What's the first lever you would tell them to pull? Is it sell your technicians time and keep their time at the most valuable? That's the most valuable asset, don't you think?
I think it's that. And I'm always shocked on Service Scheduler, because what we see is if the customer goes on your website and they don't see an available appointment, like a lot of customers don't want to call it. And it's like and again, it's generational, but there's unfortunately a whole generation of customers who does not want to call in. And the amount of times I open a service scheduler and it shows no availability 2 weeks out, but then you pick up the phone and of course they're going to get you in the next day. But it's like, make sure that your digital presence gets the customer to you. I think if you do that, you get your technicians turning wrenches as opposed to chasing all the other things that they're doing. And then you do the other hygiene on the customer platform, the marketing outreach and those things.
So I think, in my new position as the Chief Revenue Officer at TechWall, a lot of these things that you're saying is things that we obviously are working really hard to make happen, right? But the key to it, though, is I'm seeing a lot of dealers that are now finally booking for the technician in the time that they have available. Whereas for a long time, it was, I'm going to book it by the amount of hours that I'm open and how many advisors I have. And I'm not going to look at where, the true talent, the people that actually have to make the job come together, how do I maximize their time and make it so that they're not losing time, right? How do we keep them in their bays? Do we have something that's telling them immediately they're recommending a repair And forever and a day, they'd have to wait to see if parts had the part in stock. They'd sit there and wait to see if the advisor sold the job, and then say the advisor sells the job. That's great news, right? But then the advisor comes out and says, "Hey, great news! I sold it, but the parts aren't going to be here until tomorrow or the next day," right? But all that time of waiting, do I have the part in stock? So one of the things that is important to me is, let's tell the technician straight away, do we have the part in stock? Because if we don't, regardless of if we sell it now or not, you can't do the job. So move on to something else where we can continue being profitable, right? So I think that's a big thing for me. But another thing that's coming up now is fixed absorbency. And for a long time, it used to be 60, 70%. When I first broke into the business, I remember hearing, hey, we got to be 60 to 70% absorbent. Now you're hearing 80 to 100. What's your take on that?
So I think the best in class is anywhere between 100 and even I've seen 120. But again, that's kind of, you're in a very unique setup, either because of wholesale or you have some small business fleets, where you really get kind of like a very stable load into the shop. But I think if you're at 60 right now, you're kind of leaving money on the table, or there are other things maybe your fixed costs are just out of whack. But I think if you're targeting that 80 to 100 range, that's definitely where you want to be.
So I guess the question would be, though, when we look at that 80 to 100 range, there's a big variable that comes from variable, right? So when you're trying to offset variable expenses, the biggest one that I've always had to try and figure out how to offset is marketing. The amount of money that we spend in marketing is astronomical, and how much of it is actually getting to the consumer that you're trying to get, somebody that's in a position where they can buy a car soon, or, want to buy a car soon, or, in some cases, are they alive? Do they still live in your market area? So how do you guys differentiate the reality of somebody that's spending frugally against somebody that is not actually watching their total spend and figuring out where their value is? And I know that might be a loaded question, but it's one that, is frustrating, because depending on where you go, 80 to 100 sounds fantastic. But if we're spending so much more on things that aren't actually hitting, how do we offset that? Like, where's the controllable?
I think I typically recommend people to actually look at individual unit economics, because it's sometimes fascinating. People are like, well, I'm not spending that much money on my classifieds and my agency and all the things. And then you're like, okay, but you've sold this many cars last month, and this was your Google bill. This is your third-party classified bill. This is your agency bill. You were chasing co-op dollars. And so you did some saying, yes, you got co-op dollars, but you still had out-of-pocket spend. And I'll divide this by the number of cars. And suddenly you're like, oh my God, I'm at $1,500 a copy in marketing expense. I mean, I've seen as high as $4,500 and people not really being mindful, or they were bidding against the OEM on lower funnel search terms, or they had too much brand building and not enough tangible offers in the market. And so I think that if you compare a dealer group today versus a dealer group 5 years ago, the level of sophistication you need to have in your marketing deployment is very different. Because to your point, it's like, who is actually my audience? And if I'm a Stellantis dealer, a Nissan dealer, a Ford or GM or like whoever is like, or BMW, Audi, or Porsche, like your audience is very, very different. And so you don't want to target the same consumer. You don't want to target the same messaging. And you're kind of competing, especially with some of the bigger public dealer groups who run more sophisticated marketing message A/B testing. They constantly refining their marketing algorithms, their mixed media modelings. And so I think there is a real capability as a dealer to your point, to not let the variable side of the business get out of control on the marketing spend, to really understand kind of who's the audience, what did I actually pay on a per car basis? Did I pay 4 times for the same lead? And getting kind of more control of really understanding what you're paying for on the marketing side, and what is the value? Am I getting good quality leads? Do they actually convert to a sale? And I think everybody always makes forward-looking changes, but nobody looks back at the end of the month and say, did what I do, did the choices I make actually yield the results? And so I really encourage dealers, close your months, but then find a day in the second week of the next month before you're scrambling to hit the numbers at the end of the month, kind of to really look back at your marketing tactics and really take a critical eye. And sometimes, and I know you'd never want to lose a month, but sometimes I'm like, if you're not sure it's working, just turn it off for a month,
right,
and see what happens.
Yeah.
And then if nothing happens, maybe this was not it. And if you're like, oh my God, it's middle of the month and I really feel my pipeline looks completely different, then this was actually a really good instrument. But at least you have clarity on that.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is we're still very stacked on the sales side of the business between there's a sales associate, there's an F&I manager, there's a general sales manager, there is a general manager at a dealership. And again, sometimes when you look at the economics of these people and put them on a per car basis, it's a lot of money. And we published an article a couple of months ago that was basically 10 years ago, we sold 10 to 12 cars per salespeople. Today, we sell 10 to 12 cars per salesperson, depending, like, yes, of course, there's exceptions who sell 20 or 30. Yeah, we all have seen them. But on average, besides better CRMs, chatbots, BDCs, lead management, like all the tools we have jammed into a dealership, we're still not selling more cars for the individual person in the dealership. And I think that's another thing that really hurts your fixed cost absorption. Is this not really holding people accountable? And yes, sometimes that requires some adjustment in pay plans to actually see some of that productivity step up.
Or maybe personnel. So are you saying, so would you say that the gap between somebody that's average against somebody that's a top performer, do you think it's consistency, or do you think it's execution, or the willingness to do exactly what you just said? Change your stance mid-month and look back and see what you're actually doing. I mean, we look at from a fixed side, I mean, we look at what our total revenue is per RO, right? And then kind of break it down. And so we're looking to hold. I can say that, hey, if I marketed to 5,000 people this month, that's what it was. This is what I got. This is what my overall cost was. And I can show you what the net is from it, right? So, I mean, why are we not doing that on both sides of the fence? Because it doesn't seem that we do.
I think what sometimes happens is there is so much almost noise if you're on the variable side of the business. The amount of vendors between the software solutions on chatbots, digital marketing, your dealer website, your retargeting on social. Then you have the OEM field team who wants you to do whatever campaign, whatever incentive change. Then kind of like the classifieds come on with enhanced listings. And so I think it's very easy to kind of make incremental decisions, and none of them feel like there is a lot of dollars. But they don't feel like, oh my God, I'm betting the dealership if I give $10,000 more a month to this vendor. But the problem is when you stack them all on top of each other, it becomes really expensive, and they're not discreetly all improving outcomes. And we have, as an industry, have made it very hard because of the way a lead goes from the OEM website to the dealer website, sometimes back to the OEM website, to a Carfax or a third-party classified on the used car side, back to the dealer through like a check on a trade-in appraisal. And so it's kind of like, it's very hard to get to the point where you have really this very consistent view of the customer. And so again, that's everybody can now sell you a little bit of a point solution to take a piece of the pie. And so I think that has not been that easy for dealers unless you have a dedicated person that really owns data, marketing, and sales conversion, because sometimes you also have these very isolated marketing departments. They're measured by number of leads, but not every time, to be very clear. But like if they get measured on number of leads, you get these issues with a lot of leads. They're quite expensive, but they're not high quality and high conversion. If you just incentivize them on sales, then they might actually underspend relative to the market potential. And so I think it's the the sophistication of the whole marketing side has changed quite a bit and really requires a different operating model.
I think, you've mentioned it a few times, and it wouldn't be me if we don't talk about AI in one way, shape, or form. The AI conversation's happening quite a bit, front and back of the house. And I'm a big advocate for it, but with the understanding that it's not made to replace people. That's not what what it should be used for. It should be enhancing our human availability and what we do, for at least in the fixed side. I think it should really enhance what we're doing and stop the monotonous stuff that it can handle, so that we can do what we're great at, which is talking to people and making relationships. But so for, a mid-sized dealer group, something to that extent, where is AI actually delivering measurable results in your data so far?
So I think it's delivering measurable results in 3 different areas. The first one is everything after hours. So kind of after hour appointment scheduling, rescheduling, questions on test drive, basic questions on product. So we did work for a dealer group, 6 years ago before AI. And at the time we were like, if you extend your BDC hours from 8 p.m. until 11 p.m. and people come home from work and like you're available, then we were able to disproportionately take share away from local dealers just because we were the one who picked up the phone. That doesn't work today anymore because everybody has a chat bot or some type of after-hour service scheduling. But I think that's a great use case. And I think it gives a lot of leverage to the BDCs and should make them a lot more efficient. I think the second one is honestly all the back office pieces. Titling, kind of the paperwork around deal closing, registration, the finance and accounting team, warranty claims, like kind of like automating those processes where we might not get a claim paid by the OEM because we didn't aggregate the envelope correctly. And so making sure all the documents are there, they're structured correctly, they're submitted on time with the right, like all this like process hygiene. And like, nobody really is like that excited about having a bunch of back office accounting people. And so I think automating the back office processes. And then what we are seeing is on the parts pricing and parts inventory, there are some really interesting machine learning pieces because your vehicle's in operation, your service loyalty. And so based on that, you should know better than anyone else what parts your customers are expected to consume, because you also know what has that specific customer on their last car serviced. And yes, they don't always stay brand loyal, but again, I think that the level of information and the granularity that you have is quite differentiating. I think where I would like AI to be more effective is to take all the digital traces that the customer leaves in the buying journey and tell them to me as a dealer. I think it's so frustrating because the customer has told us a lot. They might have configured a car on the OEM website. They might have searched the inventory on our website. They might have gotten trade-in appraisals on any of the classifieds. And now they show up to me in the store and I say, hey, who are you? What car are you looking for? And so I think this concept of how do I take all these digital crumbs and enrich them in knowing about when Inga walks into my dealer, expect from her, and what car should I steer her towards? And this is actually where some of the digital platforms do a better job. They basically know exactly where you put the slider on the credit score. And they use that to optimize their financing algorithm. And on the other side, we show up with them in the car dealer and we try to guesstimate what their credit score might be and what they might qualify for. And so I think that's where then customer get pulled towards some of the more digitally enabled buying journeys.
I haven't looked at it as much on the variable side, clearly, because of my fixed background. But from the parts side, looking at it, that would reduce obsolescence. That would make sure that you're not overexpending on the cash of having the wrong parts on the shelf up front, and then even if you have them for 45 days, right? So you're able to keep your real cash in hand. So from an AI standpoint, you feel that. Do you feel that there should be a AI champion in the store? Somebody that's responsible for ensuring that the body, because AI, in my experience, is it comes in, but you still have to train it. You still have to work it. You have to treat it like an employee, and if not one employee, a million employees. And yes, once you train it once, it generally isn't going to go back and make the mistake, but from my bot experience with booking appointments and having to talk to my customers, you really have to train it. But there's not a lot of people out there that want to spend the time or care to spend the time. They just expect that this thing's going to get dropped in their hands and it's going to work. And I think that that's been why you have some stores that have 40 different things that have snowballed into a huge expense, and none of them are doing what they're supposed to do. How do you see dealers, independents, whatever it may be, how do they find the value in what they should be bringing on board or potentially getting rid of?
Yeah, I think when I was at NADA this year, like one thing that really fascinated me, I feel it was the first time that, it's like dealers always say, oh, I'm not going to get trapped by all these shiny objects. Yeah. But then you have all these startups with 200, 300, 500 dealers signed up. Right? And I think this time was the first time that the dealers actually said, if I bring a new tool, I have to train you on it. And then I have to make sure it integrates with my systems. And then I need to be careful about cybersecurity and customer data. And even if it makes my service advisor 3% more efficient, according to all the data the vendor is showing, I've just lost training them. I've had to spend Y dollars in system integrations. I had to spend X dollars in maintaining it and protecting it and whatever. And so I actually think it is really important that somebody in the dealership owns AI, but really technology broadly. And really, to your point, critically asked, is this technology really delivering value for my store? And is the next best point solution really the right answer for me? Or maybe I get something that's already integrated and it's whatever, maybe 10% worse, but it avoids all the integration. And trust me, by no means am I an advocate for only one software vendor in a dealership, because I think there is value to a lot of the innovation we have seen in CRMs, in dealer websites. Yeah, but I think I struggle when I go to NADA and I see these micro point solutions. Yeah, they're not even almost a solution. They're like a product for one workflow. And if I'm a dealer, I have a really hard time. And I know everybody in my dealership is getting sold to by all these vendors. And eventually someone is going to cave and let it come into my dealership. And I think even when we do market assess CRMs 5 years ago, I would have told you a very different CRM than I would be telling you today. And so I think it is actually important that you have someone who really looks at what is the value add to my store's vendor. And I think especially if you have a single rooftop, typically it's easy for the owner or the general manager to have control of it. But what we found is once you have multiple stores, it's not just the vendors, but between the vendors and the co-op programs and kind of the campaigns, it gets very easy to, now I have 4 different equity mining tools in my 6 stores. I have kind of, where sometimes I run one for the OEM and one for the FinCo and one for myself. And so really taking a critical eye again on what is the cost, what is the return I'm getting for it, and also really holding the vendors accountable. I think sometimes we kind of invite them in and then we'll wake up 3 years later and we were like, this was really good when it started, but now we're 3 years later and what are we doing with it? So.
Yes, that right up my alley. And I am a vendor now, and but as much as I'm a vendor, I'm an operator. And my thought is always, as an operator, yeah, I have a great tool, don't get me wrong, but I think you made a good point no, there is no single solution for anything that we do. However, I think that it's really important for you to find the vendors that, one, you can hold accountable and work for you, not just take a paycheck, but more importantly, they are great in their lane, in what they do, but allow the integration to bring something on top of it to make the tool and their tool better. And that's how we can do it. So yeah, you may end up with 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 solutions, but they're all working together to give you the product that brings you to the homeland, which is to be the best you possibly can financially, but more importantly, understanding from the vendor point of view and the dealer point of view that our end customer is the one coming in buying parts, cars, and labor.
Yeah.
Agree? I love it.
Totally agree.
Inga, this has been awesome. I've loved the conversation, and I'm so glad that we got to do it. And you said 5 years ago that you'd have very different answers as far as what CRM. I can tell you that in a year, I've gone just as far as different AI solutions. The companies change periodically. What I'd love to do is at the beginning of next year, or maybe even 6 months from now, I want to see what the differences are from this conversation to the next conversation, because I have a feeling with everything that's going on, we're going to have a different point of view 6 months down the road. Don't you think?
Oh, I totally agree. I think we'll look at each other and we'll be surprised that some things moved a lot faster. Yes. And some things where we were having high hopes for kind of ran into some complexity or challenge. So no, we definitely need to get back together in 6 months.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for all your time. I know you're super, super busy, but I look forward to the next conversation for sure.
Absolutely. Same here. Thank you so much for the time.